Welcome to Studio Soundcheck. I'm your host, Amanda Goings. We're here today with Damon Dawson. He's a local artist and musician. Hi, Damon.
Hi.
I noticed that you're holding this beautiful handmade instrument there, and tell me a little bit about that, because this is very unique.
Thank you very much. This is the only instrument I've ever painted.
Looks great.
Oh, thank you. It's spray paint through lace. It's a tenor guitar. Sometimes I've referred to it as a chromatic dulcitar. A four-stringed instrument, not unlike a bass, in a higher register and made for alternate tunings.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, it's very unique. I noticed you've got another one on the other side of the couch there. That's also very pretty.
This is a lap steel guitar, a traditional instrument in Delta blues and Hawaiian music is really where it has its roots.
Okay.
Basically a fancy plank of wood with strings tensioned on it.
Now, are these, I understand that you're doing a project with the Indiana Arts Council. Are these instruments you made for that, or?
That's correct. These are instruments I built through the Indiana Arts Commission's Individual Artist Program.
Okay.
I applied and received a small grant to build 5 instruments and record compositions, record music with the instruments.
Okay, and now I understand with those recordings, you've actually, a few weeks ago, released an album of those recordings, correct?
That is correct. There are 7 songs. The title of the album is Point Township Antisocial Club, sort of a play on the Rycooter album. And it's basically instrumental music inspired by life in southern Indiana. There's a lot of inspiration from the river and the floodplain, the delta down there. Fantastic.
Well, now, if people are interested in this disc, where can they find that?
It's available through dyspepsidisc.com,
okay,
which is a really neat virtual label a talented friend of mine has set up for distribution, free distribution of music that artists aren't necessarily seeking to profit from.
Well, that's great. Hopefully everybody checks that out. Again, that's dyspepsidisc.com. Well, let me ask you, how did you get into making instruments, on the whole? This is obviously a very interesting and intensive hobby. You're talking about research and, kind of inventing new ways to do things. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with that.
I was in my second year at USI and I just was not happy. I was not enjoying college. So I signed up for a woodworking course thinking that I might refinish some vintage Fenders or something. Mm-hmm. When I got there, I realized that I had everything I needed there just to build an instrument from scratch, and also considered the idea that refinishing something that was antique might devalue it. So I started then, and I never really looked back. From there, I did go ahead and stop USI, went to IU for some audio technology training, spent a little time at Heron School of Art looking for a better woodworking facility, and then returned to USI to finish in the late 90s, 98.
And now that you are, it sounds like, kind of wrapping up the project with the Indiana Arts Council, what's next?
Good question. I'm going to attempt to play some music without any necessary, any pressure to produce a result. Get back to making music for fun, which is really where my heart is.
And again, if you're interested in that disc, it's dyspepsidisc.com. That's a free disc from Damon, and we're actually going to go out to the studio and see a little bit of Damon's work out there and kind of the process. Hi, I'm Amanda Goings with Studio Soundcheck. We're here in Damon Dawson's workshop, taking a look at his work and where he makes all these beautiful instruments.
Yeah, let me just show you around this place. This is my first permanent workshop. I was working in my parents' garage, my grandmother's outbuilding, the studio out at USI. Wherever I could find space to set up and get things done, I built a few instruments in my mother's dining room at one point. Having a permanent studio, a place to work, whether it's a fancy facility or not, it's really important.
So Damon, tell me what's going on here.
I have some of the most important hand tools that I use laying out here. I kind of got them out to show you. This is a pair of modern rasps. They're Sureforms. Here I have a little drill knife that I use a lot for carving a neck. These cabinet scrapers. Before I started acquiring these kinds of tools, I was doing things just with heavy sandpapers, all abrasive processes, which works, but it makes so much dust and it takes a tremendous amount of time. I'm not to a point where I can afford a really good dust collection system or something of that nature. So here in my home shop, I came up with a solution that I think is pretty creative. I created sort of a tent for my heavier tooling, a dust room, if you will. And here you can see a drop cloth. I've attached it to the ceiling of my basement here, and it is set up in a way that I can drop this to the floor and basically seal the dust into this tool room. All right, Amanda, now we're in my tool room, and or my dust tent where I keep my heavier tools. I accumulated these tools over a course of 10 years since I've graduated college. But this is my bandsaw. It's my most important tool. It allows me to cut curves and, well, shucks, honestly, I can do just about anything I want with it. It's like a sewing machine that takes wood apart rather than puts fabric together. A simple palm sander, router, which I'll use to rough shape a neck around over the back of a neck, as well as create cavities for pickups or other hardware that might go into the body of an instrument. Pretty heavy duty angle grinder. I use this for power carving or moving material really quickly when I don't have the time or patience to use the rasps, files, and other things.
All right.
It makes a mess.
Hence all the drop cloths.
It makes a mess. It's a Shopsmith Mark V. It's a multi-tool. It's basically a big motor that I can attach different apparati to and perform different operations. Here I have a few more tools. A basic belt and disc sander, tiny little thing. A lot of this stuff is available at Home Depot or Lowe's.
I was going to ask where you get most of your stuff.
Yeah, some of these things are specialty items that you might procure through woodworking boutiques and stuff, but a lot of it is just hardware store tools.
Okay.
And there's really something to that because they're much more affordable within my means and available. You've got to use what you have at hand, or what you know. If you spend all your time thinking about what you might need to accomplish something, you're probably not going to accomplish it. Of course, we have some of the other instruments that I built in this grant project. This is a 4-string bass guitar, all in maple. Interesting contouring going on. These are the kinds of things that you don't find in a lot of factory-built or stock instruments. Details like a wood control cavity cover, this sort of shaping. I'm pushing some of this shaping much further than a lot of people would dare to for fear of cross-grain breaking or something, but maple's darn strong. I don't think it's going to break anytime soon. A 5-string fretless guitar built from Peruvian cedar that was given to me by Mike Eads. This is interesting because the material is not even a hardwood. It's actually a conifer or a softwood, which you very seldom see used in solid body instrument construction. It looks like this is one piece of material, but this was actually 3 pieces, and you won't be able to see the seams, but this neck passes through the body, and to either side are chunks of wood that were added before it was all shaped out and turned into this final form. It's a very unique sounding instrument. Here I have what I'm referring to as a chromatic dulcitar, a phrase that I used earlier in our interview. This particular example has 3 strings that are tuned 1st, 5th, and octave, or like a power chord used in a lot of classic rock and roll and punk rock. Top course, though, is a dual course. It has 2 strings to reinforce melodies played in the higher register. Under this black disc is a sound well, or a cavity I created with a router and a template that this Sitka spruce disc that's painted black rests on, and there are contact microphones underneath it. These contact microphones are wired to an output on the back, which allows the signal to be sent to an amplifier or a recording device or whatnot. I think this is a really nice piece.